Hey, Amy.
Yeah, Juan.
Give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amie Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you are listening to us on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Bluesky at Baseball Shangri-La. That was a little weird, huh, Amy?
I mean, it was fine. It was fine. Nobody knows.
I'm either just getting over something or I'm not completely over it.
Would you like a cough drop?
I'm sucking on a cough drop right now. We got sick over the weekend, and this one, it was just, I just felt more like achy than anything. I didn't feel like I was that congested. But
so you didn't celebrate Star Wars Day?
I celebrated by sitting at home all day, just watching baseball and watching the NBA playoffs.
Well, may the day after the 4th be with you.
Thank you very much. I know you celebrated Star Wars Day.
And also with you.
And with your spirit. I don't know. They changed it. They changed it.
What did they?
It used to be in with your spirit, and now it's and also with you, or vice versa.
We went to different churches.
Well, at least for the Catholics. If we have any Catholics.
I was Catholic. It was, and also with you. Lift up your hearts. We lift them up to the Lord.
Yeah, but
it is right to give him thanks and praise.
Look, in all
I'm no longer Catholic, so
yeah,
but that was ingrained.
I still call myself, I'm more of a Catholic Buddhist, but it's been a while since I've attended church. But the last time I went to the church.
Catholic?
Yeah, exactly. The last time I went to the church, I was like, and with you, and then someone said, and with your spirit. And I was just like, huh?
My spirit has to do with this.
So if we have any diehard Catholics watching the show.
No, we don't need correction on
just let me know. I
Star Wars.
Because I was not given the newsletter that it changed.
Go to church and you'll find out.
I guess. Yeah, so I apologize for my voice in advance, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just literally getting over something. Luckily, it did not. I got my flu shot, so I think it actually worked. It did not kick my ass as much as it might have. Because
that's good news, because then you're here with us today.
Yeah, I was just down one day, and now I'm slowly gathering my strength back. Amy, ¿cómo estás?
Hi.
Look, let's get into the comments on the Comment Corner, because look, I it's no joke when I say we love when you leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And our last episode, we got a lot of engagement. So I would love to be able to address some of these comments. Amy, do you have any that in particular you want to address?
I mean, they were all great. We did see from Simply Brandy talking about the prices are outrageous, but what really grinds her gears is the fees, and just talking about some of the stuff we heard from like Jose Ayala and some of the other comments is how much these games are, and not everybody can afford to go, and it is frustrating. We're hearing that basically across the board.
Absolutely. Look, I did not realize this. I was this years old when I realized that Jose Ayala is moneybags. I don't know if you saw his comment. Jose Ayala, I'm going to read his comment. He's like, hey, guys, you're not going to believe it, but until last year, I was going to at least 3 to 4 times a year. And each time I would go, I would spend at least $700 each time. And I don't have money to throw. But yes, it's expensive to take my family. So, Jose, I'm hoping that $700 covered a lot of people going to that game. Because if it was just 2 or 3 of you guys going to $700, that honestly, it bumps me out that you used to go to that many games and now you can't. Because that means now, if you did, you would be spending more than $700 to go to a game. And that, to me, is a lot of money to be taking the family to go see a game.
Well, and it's across the board. It doesn't matter what kind of fan you are. If you go once a year, if you go a bunch of times a year, the fact that, it is going up. And I think somebody else addressed it. Let's see, I'm jumping around the comments here. Was it, gosh, El Cerebro left us a good one, but I think it was, gosh, there's so many I'm skipping around to. I think it was El Cerebro, where it's just ownership has made a conscious effort to raise prices. They're eliminating any of the base or value options. They're dedicated to kind of agreeing with what we were saying on the show, that they're dedicated to selling an experience. And it's not just Dodgers fans that are going, it is also tourists. I bumped into one of the tourist leaders when I was there on Tuesday for Women's Night, and they were talking about how this is now, they basically confirmed what we were already talking about. It is a tourist attraction. This people are coming to get the experience. When Ohtani came to do his throwing program Tuesday night, there was people just flocking to get down there and get video of him. So it just, I mean, we're seeing it kind of across our comments too. And then El Cerebro did say at the end, but what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? El Cerebro, you bring up a very good point in your comment, also in the sense of like you want, and this is not what every major league team is doing, but as El Cerebro said in his comments there, this team is putting that money back into the team to make the team competitive. He says, I believe Dodger games have become more expensive by choice and not so much as a byproduct of the financial climate we find ourselves in. I'm not complaining. The Dodgers have been one of the best teams in the last decade, and I'd rather pay to have a good team than get a bargain with mediocre, sucky team. And
Which is what I was just talking with an Angels fan over the weekend, and they were admiring. I was just telling Juan this before the show. They were admiring my giveaway hoodie, and for whatever it costs to go to that game, they have an Angels pullover that's being given away this Friday. The cheapest ticket is $11. You would not see that. We don't even have $11 tickets anywhere in the stadium for any of the games against the Rockies.
$11 doesn't even cover parking, people.
It doesn't even cover like some of the food there.
Exactly. and look, I want to be clear about this. I am not complaining about this because, like El Cerebro says, I've accepted the fact that, okay, you're going to charge this and you're putting it back on the team. So I have fully accepted that I am going to watch the majority of the games now from my home and from TV. Now, I know that there are other fans that are bummed because they did like going to games and they are priced out. But I have willingly and openly accepted I'm not going to go to as many games as I used to go before. And I'm perfectly fine watching the games from TV.
I will exchange a ticket for you anytime you want.
No, I appreciate that. But that is one of those things. And that's why I'm saying I am not complaining. I think it would suck if it was the opposite of what El Cerebro said, where it was like they weren't putting it back in the team. But they are. I would much rather see a competitive team. And that's for at least the last decade. That's what we've gotten. The days of McCourt are long in the rearview mirror, and that was painful to watch. Hey, try being a Marlins fan. I know we're going to talk about that series. That was some ugly baseball. And I cannot imagine being a fan of that team and watching that and knowing that your ownership group is willingly putting that product out there.
And I don't think they've had anything less than, I think 47,000 in the stadium. I'd have to go back and look at all of the numbers, but they've had, we'll round down. Let's say they've had more than 45,000 since the inception of the season. And while one of the games was rained out on Saturday, the channel was flipping. I think it was Fox was flipping through other games, and somebody was like, "Oh my God, nobody's at Dodger Stadium." And it was like, no, first of all, we're not playing at Dodger Stadium, but that's not a Dodgers game. It was just an empty stadium while the game was going on. And there are plenty of teams where, rain or not, they don't have fans showing up because they don't have a good product on the field.
I don't know as of what date this was, but the last figure I saw, Amie, was that the Dodgers were averaging 50,000 a game.
It would be that, because I think the lowest was like 47,000, but pretty much every night I've seen between 49 and like 52,000.
And that's crazy. I mean, that is
Every game, every home game.
exactly, to have at least close to 50,000 fans. I mean, the demand is very high. A good old friend, David Wants a Taco. I want to address David Wants a Taco's comments. And that is because David Wants a Taco is the ultimate Max Muncy defender.
Mhm.
And I love that. So here's
And we're
David Wants a
gonna
Taco.
talk about him later too.
Okay.
David Wants a Taco. So
So if it was a Dodger fan, and this is following up on that comment of the fan who was yelling obscenities to Max
Mhm.
Muncy as he was getting on the bus in Chicago. And so David Wants a Taco says, if it was a Dodger fan, they better not own up to it around me, because Max Muncy fan numero uno is going to give them a whole ears full. I remember one time Max was on the podcast and he was asked about being booed, and he answered with so much respect and humility, saying it's the fans' right to do so. I didn't watch the video with the audio, but I saw his face, and I'd like to think he used that moment as a motivator to say F you to that guy and his back come a couple of days later.
Mhm.
There are some theories to that, but just to circle on that, I don't know if you, I think it was the last home game, or maybe it was Tuesday night, maybe it was Women's Night. Or no, I think it was the
'Cause
night he
it's
hit
a
the home run.
ladies' night.
Did he
That
hit
would
the
have
home
been
run on Ladies' Night?
no, he hit it on Wednesday. It was the afternoon game.
Okay, so when they asked him, and he was talking about like how he is aware of the criticisms and
They're
how it's a
all
privilege,
aware. God.
but it's how it's a privilege to play for the Dodgers, and that criticism comes with playing for the Dodgers. And I think that was so huge of Muncy to acknowledge that, because he could have given you an Anthony Rendon answer and said, or he could have given you a Kenley Jansen answer. Because there were many times Kenley Jansen wore a Dodgers uniform and would answer that question with, who cares? Who cares? Clearly knowing he was annoyed by the question, but
Mhm.
I thought that was very professional of Muncy to acknowledge that there is pressure that comes with wearing that Dodger uniform, and he's aware of it.
I agree 100% on that, and I would even go a step further that many baseball fans feel that because I'm like I said, I'm making my way through the Red Sox documentary on Netflix. And the stuff that they are showing on that documentary about how fans talk about players, so just the potential that the team has and how frustrated they are. And I think one of them said to one of the players, like, "I hope you die. I hope you get in a car accident." After, but it gets passed off by the other side of like, "Oh, they're just passionate fans," and that's the side where I disagree. That is not passion to me. That is not something to be like held up as this standard of like, I am a passionate fan. This is how much I care about the game because these guys put their heart and soul on the field every day and they leave it out there. And for people, whether you're losing, whether you have the privilege of wearing a Dodgers uniform, whatever, for people to say those things to like just under the guise of being a fan, to me, I will never understand.
And David Wants a Taco is also a defender of Steven Nelson. So David Wants a Taco chimes in with, I enjoy Steven Nelson's calls. I loved his call at the end of the Crazy Texas Rangers game where they tagged the runner out at the end. So much emotion. There were some more comments on our in regards to our broadcasters. Slippery Tom, the Hawk, referring to the Hawk Harrelson, who is the former announcer of the Chicago White Sox. The Hawks' good guy calls were part of his Midwest folksy charm. I didn't like it at first, but came around to it later. They recently retired Jack Edwards of the Bruins, came on even stronger, but it just became hilarious. You know what, Slippery Tom? I'm glad that you have a sense of humor about this kind of stuff and you don't let that stuff get to you. Look, I'll just say this. I have friends who are diehard Chicago White Sox fans, and Hawk Harrelson used to drive them crazy with those calls, with the good guy, 2-0 good guys, and all that stuff. So while I'm glad that you were able to come around to it, there were some Chicago White Sox fans out there who still were celebrating, and I feel bad, but they celebrated when Hawk Harrelson retired and they didn't have to listen to that anymore. I want to acknowledge also Jose Ayala when he said, don't forget about Don Drysdale. Jose, you're absolutely right. Don Drysdale, before he passed away, and the sad thing is Don Drysdale was still working when he passed away. He was up in Montreal when they found him in his hotel. And Don Drysdale, I think, had become a really good broadcaster. That broadcast team on television really did a good job of complimenting themselves, I thought, with Vin Scully and then John Drysdale, and then they would go back to Vin. And I don't think, I'm glad you called him out, Jose. I don't think Don Drysdale got enough credit for the broadcaster that he became. He also wants to show some love to Rick Monday. And you know what? I also want to show some love to Rick Monday. Now, I understand the criticism that some people give of Rick Monday, because I think Rick Monday is so good as a color analyst. He really will break down a play, what happened there, why a play didn't get made, and stuff like that. I understand why some people are kind of on Rick Monday because he seems a little too critical. And in particular, when he starts, well, back in the day, these plays wouldn't have happened. So it does give a little bit of an old man shaking fist at cloud that we were so much better in that other day. But I think Rick Monday does a really great job of providing color commentary. And what's so great is, and I think El Cerebro brought in the story aspect that Rick Monday does that was also referenced to Vin Scully. Rick Monday can do both. Like, there are times where Rick Monday has to be the play-by-play announcer because who knows, somebody got a day off. So yeah, look, I love that you guys acknowledge these conversations about broadcasters and you shared your opinions with you. Yes, Don Drysdale was great. I think Ross Porter was great. I think Rick Monday's great on the radio. So I really appreciate you guys chiming in with all those comments.
And we got a comment to our Instagram account from Roland, and this is something we'll cover when we do our series recap, but he had written to say that Kike with the small ball to set up the game-winning 2 RBI walk-off single by April MVP Tommy Edman, and he just said positive vibes from Baseball Shangri-La makes sense. So thanks for, again, to everybody. Thank you for taking the time to just write us and comment on things. And if we didn't mention your comment, we did read it. We try to get in there. And so we just really appreciate you guys.
I love Roland because Roland is always out there making sure that we get credit for stuff, because Roland was the one that was going around telling everybody about wearing the Jackie Robinson uniform at the White House visit. Roland was out there doing the Lord's work and telling everybody that came from Baseball Shangri-La. Shangri-La put out that idea. Nobody's giving them credit for it. So Roland, you're the best, man. We really appreciate the support. All right, you ready to talk some baseball?
Yeah.
All right, and a pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. Amie, let's start with some updates.
Hey, great job. Way to go, partner. So we have quite a few updates. Most of them happened towards the beginning of the week on Tuesday. You're going to get ready for the whiplash, guys. Reinforce your neck just so that you don't get that jarring action. But we recalled Matt Sauer on Tuesday and optioned pitcher Noah Davis. It was also Women's Night. Shohei had a throwing routine. He was warming up out in the field. And then by Wednesday, Tony Gonsolin was activated and Matt Sauer was optioned again. So we'll get more into.
Can I just say, Amie, I saw that coming. The minute I saw how long they let him pitch in that game,
Mhm.
I said, "Oh, he's getting released tomorrow.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
getting released tomorrow."
And we'll
Or
like
optioned, excuse me.
yes, optioned, yeah. And then by Thursday, the Dodgers had claimed JP Fireisen. He was with us, I believe, last year, wasn't he?
Old friend alert.
Old
That's right.
friend, yeah.
Old friend
So
alert.
we claimed him off waivers from the Diamondbacks, and we also acquired right-handed pitcher Ryan Lutos from St. Louis for cash considerations, while also transferring Michael Kopech and Blake Trinan to the 60-day IL. So, dun, dun, dun.
And just keep in mind, guys, that Blake Trinan's and Kopech's 60 days ILs are a little different. Kopech's, I think, started earlier. So you're probably, what I think, if you read in between the lines, you're going to definitely see Kopech before you see Blake Trinan again this year.
Yeah, and especially depending on how Blake Trinan's goes and how similar it was to some of the stuff in the past. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then Saturday, we recalled Hae-Sung Kim, Tommy Edman did go out with right ankle inflammation, so they did put him on the IL retroactive to April 30th, so that Wednesday game where he first didn't play. And then Clayton Kershaw had his Oklahoma City rehab start, the third one, last Wednesday. He pitched 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. And he ended up throwing 66 pitches, 44 of those for strikes. So I'm sure there's other stuff that we're going to get to in and amongst the recaps, but those were the big ones, the big moves.
Real quick, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Kershaw supposed to pitch twice last week? Did one of those get? Did they reschedule one of his outings?
As far as I knew, he was supposed to pitch on Sunday, and then Tuesday or Wednesday was supposed to be the one on shorter rest. So he ended up pitching on Wednesday because the rain out on Tuesday.
Got it. So there was supposed to be a shorter outing,
which was Wednesday when he pitched.
Okay.
As far as I know, I think he might have even. There was talk amongst the tweets this weekend of when he would pitch again, and honestly, I glanced at it, but I didn't see it in detail.
Okay, are those all the updates?
Oh, I forgot to mention Yoshinobu Yamamoto got an NL Pitcher of the Month.
And he deserves it because his ERA is under 1 again, Amie.
Yep, he's at 0.90, so he's got a 90 ERA.
What was it against the
.90? .90.
Did he give up 1 earned run or 2 earned runs and his ERA ballooned to over 1?
I'm glad you asked because I have all of his game stats right here. Okay. So at the beginning of April, he was at a 169, and then he pitched again that following Friday on April 11th. He was 123. Then he went back down below 1. He was .93 on April 18th, and then he went back up. You're right. It was that Pirate start brought him up to 106, and as of May 2nd. So technically,
was it 2 earned runs that he gave up in that game?
3 runs, 1 earned run in the Pirates game.
It was only 1 earned run. Damn.
Correct. Yes. And now he's
1
back
earned
down.
run, and it makes your ERA over 1.
Yeah, that .93 to the 106. Gee, got him.
Look, this guy deserves it. I mean, I know we're going to talk about what he did against the Bravos, but damn, I mean, I know a lot of people were saying, they were expecting a lot from him in this second season. What was 1 year experience in Major League Baseball going to do? Amie, I don't know if I expected this. I mean, for him to be as good as he has looked. Like I said, we'll cover it in the Bravo series. I do want to talk about the Marlins of Miami series, and in particular,
last update. Our old friend of the team, Ross Stripling, announced his retirement today. So Chicken Strip is retired from the majors.
And so he played for 13 years. And I think Ross Stripling, is indicative of what people wish their Major League Baseball careers would be. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who played long enough to get tenure. He's going to get his pension. Now he met the service level goal.
Service time requirement.
There you go, service time requirement. And I think in the end, of course, yes, we all want to be Hall of Famers. We all want to be the greats of the game. But for the most part, with the number of major leaguers that are in this sport, I think a lot of them just want to do what Ross Stripling did. And while it may have low fanfare that he announced his retirement and everybody's just like, huh? I'm so happy for the guy.
Huh? All of my people were like, yay, good for him.
Are all your people Dodger fans?
Yes. Oh, your non-Dodger fans are.
Yeah, I'm the rest of Major League Baseball, just the same way we would react if there was somebody on the Cardinals who retired.
I mean, if I knew him, I'd probably be stoked for him too.
How many people that weren't Dodger fans do you think know Chicken Strip?
I don't know. He played on 4 different teams, so he could have made the rounds.
That's why I'm just thinking, to me, this story makes me very happy because he had a good Major League Baseball career.
One of the nicest guys. He I think it was my first fan fest. It was in 2020. He had a line of people and got through his line while Kike's was snaking down around, gosh, I don't even know how long. And he came out of his side and just came over and signed stuff for the rest of us who were waiting in line. Didn't have to. I have a scorebook or a scorecard signed by him. Just a great guy. Just sat there chatting with us.
In a sport where it's very easily very easy to get released, to get sent down. For him to survive for 13 years at a major league level, I think is quite an accomplishment. And I tip my hat to him. So congratulations to Ross Stripling. And honestly, I think I would not be surprised if he ends up showing up in media afterwards covering the game. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he ends up working for a team and either in the front office or at the coaching level.
Well, he has that financial background too. He's like a financial whiz.
Yeah. So
he's got options.
He's got options. He's not going to end up like MC Hammer, I don't think. So I think
if I wasn't sitting, I would have the urge to do my MC Hammer crab walk right now.
Or because it's Hammer time.
It's
and
too legit to quit, man. Too legit.
And what was Ross Stripling's best pitch?
The hammer?
The curveball. And that's when he would drop the hammer. Hammer time! Hammer time! Thank you. 2 shows nightly at the Pacoima Hilton, everybody.
Please make sure to tip your servers.
Okay, any more?
Okay, I am officially updated out.
Okay, so I want to talk to you. Let's go back to the Marlins of Miami series. And in particular, because you were there for Women's Night, okay? I want to talk to you about this. I know David Wanzataco is a huge Max Muncy fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I have now become a big fan of Max Muncy's wife. I believe her name is Sarah. Is that?
No, clearly you're not a fan.
What is her name?
Her name is Kelly.
Kelly.
Did you see she redid Shohei's commercial?
I did not see that, but the reason why I've become a huge fan of hers is going back to date night and then going back to women's night. The songs that she had selected for Max Muncy to walk up. Look, she looks like Kelly Muncy likes to party, because she picked Pony, brown chicken, brown cow now, and then she picked Missy Elliott's Work It.
When he walked up, I died laughing.
Exactly. I was just like, my wife and I were watching the game, and my wife was the one that immediately caught it, and she went like, "Is he walking up to Work It?" And I was just like,
they posted the list before the game, so I had already looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pay so much attention."
We hadn't seen it. We were watching the game,
so
we just heard it, and I looked at my wife and I said, "That woman has the greatest sense of humor." I would, but what is this Shohei thing that she did?
So she reenacted his commercial, the whole thing, flipping the bottle, doing all kinds of stuff. So I'll have to send it to you on Instagram. I sent it to the unofficial Kike's unofficial fan club. I'll send it to you.
Oh, the Kike unofficial fan club. Okay. So look, the Dodgers had a good week, Amie. All right. I mean, they ended up winning 5 out of 6 in terms of the Marlins of Miami series and the Bravos. So let me ask you this, Amie. Do you think the Dodgers are playing better? I say this as at the time that we are recording this, they have the best record in Major League Baseball. Okay. And I look at it, Amie, and I'm saying to myself, how are they doing this? Because Yamamoto is great. Like, the season Yamamoto's having is great. Roki is still a work in progress.
Because he's a rookie.
Right. Dustin May is a kind of 50-50. You don't know what you're going to get with him.
He's shaking the rust off.
Okay. Tony Gonsolin just got called up. They're using a 6-man rotation to give Roki and Yamamoto time. For 3 weeks now, Roki and Yamamoto have been your starters every Friday and Saturday. That's going to change this week because they're on a 10-game stretch. How are they doing this? They're doing 2 bullpen games in between those starters. And I don't think Mookie is showing signs. He was hitting in the 230s. Michael Conforto's having the season that he's having. I don't think you could say that the Dodgers were playing great, but they have the best record in Major League Baseball. Amie, do you think they're figuring things out, or does it help when you play a last place team like the Marlins of Miami? And the Bravos just beat them for the first time all season on Sunday, and the Dodgers had a chance to win that game too.
This is where I think sometimes people just look too deeply into it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could dig into all of that stuff, but they're just playing baseball. They're gonna potentially have a slow start. They're warming up from spring training. Everybody's getting used to playing, with each other as teammates. So like this is where me and my friend group don't really have expectations like that. We want them to win. We expect them to get to the postseason. But like beyond that, it's just enjoying the game day at a time. Like they are playing good baseball right now. There's gonna go through slumps. There's some players that are still trying to turn that around, but that's where like I will look at the stats and I will dig into stuff, but like they're just like they're playing baseball.
Look, in that series, I think it was great to see. I did not realize that it had been 2 years since Tony Gonsolin last pitched. And for him to go out there and give him the start that he gave them, I think is very it's great, and I want to see what he looks like this week. Now he's going to
For
get the
per- for
Marlins
pers-
again,
for
which
perspective,
helps.
he missed all of 2024 and 30 games of this season. And I think the stat I was looking at was he hadn't played in like 621 days or something like that by the time he finally got out there. Yeah, 20 months since his last MLB start, and it was 621 days since he pitched the last time. Like that's a long time.
And like I said, he couldn't have come at a better time because the Dodgers are running out of pitchers already, and we're barely going into May. That's why, again, I'm just I shouldn't be surprised because this is what they do every year, and especially the
That
regular.
right there, that
This is what they do every year, but I guess this is what separates them from other major league teams, and this is why I get when people get upset when they call it checkbook baseball, because the level of depth that the Dodgers have to survive the regular season is something that other major league teams don't have.
right.
And they don't have it because maybe they can't spend money on those players, or because not even taking money aside, maybe they just don't develop the farm system enough to have those. So there's multiple factors there, but it's the depth, because I'm like, I literally looked at this the other day when I saw that they had the best record in Major League Baseball, and I'm like, how are they doing this? Because it's not like Dustin May is going out there every start and showing like dominating everybody, and everybody like, and this is their fifth starter. Like Dustin May, like, especially against the Bravos in that first half of that game, his pitches didn't seem like they were having any sharp movement on it, and he was getting way too much of the plate, right? But it's like, I hear this a lot. There were a lot of you who reached out to me and said, Juan, we're using the bullpen again. We're using it way too much. And I'm like, look, guys, I have fallen for this before, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I said the same thing last year. They're using the bullpen too much. The bullpen's going to burn out. And look at that. They won the World Series last year because of the bullpen, and they use the bullpen so much. They already lead the league in bullpen innings so far this year. They have a system to survive the regular season, and it works for them. So again, guys, no pasa nada. Relax. They have the best record. They have the best record. And I will say this, I don't think they're playing their best baseball, and they have the best record.
So some might say just sit back and relax. It's going to be a good season. Enjoy enjoy baseball.
That's right. Sit back and relax, because guess what? We have 5 more months of this. 5 more
No,
months.
we are lucky to have 5 more months of this. Do you not remember when baseball got taken away? That was a cold, cold day in February, March,
Amy,
whichever day that was.
there were some milestones in that series against the
Well,
Marlins of Miami. You want to touch on some of them?
oh my gosh, there's almost so much. Like I was on stats overload. Like we'll get into the extra innings win that Roland. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name.
It's rolling.
It's Roland.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, sir. But that he mentioned. But I mean, even on that Tuesday night game, Shohei had his 14th career leadoff home run. Teoscar on Tuesday hit his 200th and 201st career double. And then he also topped off. He hit more than 600 RBIs. I think he started the game at 599. Matt Sauer got his first career win. Unfortunately, that's when Tommy Edman tweaked his ankle. But there were so many things across that. Tony Gonsolin made his season debut. Like there just were so many things happening. Max Muncy hit his first home run of the season after, his 90th at bat. Finally did it. Like, were there others on your list that I didn't?
I can't believe you're missing this, or you haven't brought it up.
Oh, well, I was going to save it, but Kike also had his pitching debut at Dodger Stadium. So there was that. Is that what you were referring to?
Well, not only that, but you know that outing is historic, right?
But wait, there's more?
Do you seriously not know this?
Well, if I'm showing you a blank face, that would be no. You can't manufacture information in my head if I can't read what you're saying.
I totally thought that you were going to lead the show with this stat. I thought you and the rest of the unofficial Kike Hernandez fan club were just going to bombard me with this.
Well,
So
I might still be on my list to talk about.
we
were doing it right here.
Great pleasure to be I'm the one that's bringing this up. And so you guys can all stop saying that I'm a Kike hater because I don't, give him enough love. But Kike Hernandez is the only major league player in the modern era.
That was on my list to talk about when we got to him.
Well, we're talking about him right now.
Well, I was going to talk about the game.
I'll let you.
For it. No, please.
I'll let you. It's your moment. He's your favorite player. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
Go ahead. You don't. No, because I don't want you to not get the credit for it amongst the rest of the fans.
No, we all know we're sharing credit here. Because you had it. You had it in your magical notebook.
No, I'm good.
Come on, don't get mad. Everybody, now it's getting awkward. Now it's getting uncomfortable for the
now
listener.
You guys are listening to Mom and Dad fight. So he's the only MLB player in the modern era to score multiple runs, play multiple positions, and have a scoreless outing on the mound, all in a game that he did not start. And that was courtesy of OptaStats.
That's right. Look, you got to tip your hat to him. I mean, now I know that
he has a 0 ERA right now. So,
that was his second outing of the season, right?
No, his first, because
it was his first.
Miguel Rojas got the first one. Remember, Knack, Sasaki.
So that was the women's night game, correct?
Yes, it was.
Were you still there when he was on the mound?
I wasn't because I had to work the next day, but I pulled over on the side of the road when I heard that he was pitching, and I pulled up my app and I watched it.
Okay.
It was beautiful, and he was wearing the helmet that we saw in all spring training, him walking around in.
So were you watching the Spectrum broadcast, or were you listening on the radio?
I was watching the Spectrum broadcast while I listened on the radio, pulled over on the side of the road.
Okay. So you didn't hear Eric Karros' comment?
No.
So
I mean, I probably did after, because I did go back and watch it again. So which comment?
So it cracked me. So when Kike was out there pitching, I felt like Eric Karros was gritting through his teeth, saying, like, he really wanted to acknowledge this is really bad for baseball.
And they did say something to that effect about like the rules say the game isn't over and we can't forfeit, and so they were like, well, it's entertainment. Like,
exactly. Then both he and Steve Nelson then totally tried put lipstick on the pig and say, well, no, this is entertainment now. Which goes to show you that Eric Karros and Steven Nelson listen to our show. They watch our show.
I mean, I didn't take their comments the way you did, though. So I think that also comes down to interpretation.
Oh, all right. So
see, and that's where we interpret things differently sometimes.
I really, because that was just, it was bad baseball, Amy. If I was a fan of the Marlins of Miami.
Bad baseball? In what respect? Because I'm looking for my stats here of what he.
I'm not talking about Kike. I'm talking about the Marlins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that. That's just bad, And if you're like we were just talking, about what Ebro said. We pay high ticket prices here, and they're putting it back into the team. But, you're a fan of the Marlins of Miami, and every once in a while they'll make a wild card, right? And they make it actually fun, right? And you think, okay, is this the beginning of something? Are they going to build on this? And then they go back to just doing a bunch of Marlins stuff. And it was just...
Like you said, it can't feel good to those players either, or their fan base.
Yeah. I mean, that you're in a game where the other team is putting a position player because their lead is so big They don't want to waste a bullpen arm. And you see these guys are swinging as hard as they can, and they still can't get a hit off of Kike.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
and so and Javier Sanoja came in, I think at the top of the 8th. I'm trying to think.
in the bottom of the 8th. He came in the
Bottom of
bottom
the
of the
8th.
8th.
Yeah, I'm flipping my book over here. Yeah, because he pitched for one batter and then he came in for the 9th.
I just found it interesting when
The 8th.
Eric Karros, it was literally like I said, I don't think he did not say what I think deep down inside he wanted to say, where it's like, this is really, really bad. And that's why Steven Nelson came in and was just like, yeah, but this is entertainment, because Geek is out there wearing that helmet, putting on a show. Like, everybody was like, the people that were still there were eating it up.
And I was excited. Like, there were kids who were like, you saw the videos later, like thanking their mom for bringing them to that game. But I had just listened to one of I think it was the Midnight Library of Baseball's podcast, and they were talking about head injuries and how pitchers are they're not willing to look into helmets right now because it will impact their performance. And then you have Kike going out there with like safety first, and he's got his little helmet on.
You know what? With the amount of times that Yamamoto has almost taken a ball off of his head in this past week alone, I applaud Geeke for wearing that. I know people think, oh, look at him, he's clowning around over there. Look, my daughter plays softball. Their pitchers wear face masks when they're out there. Like, these hitters are so good, and I don't care how good your reflexes are. When you have balls getting hit like over 100 miles per hour, there's only so much reaction time that you could get. So
Bobby Miller.
yeah, and you know what? I also thought it was great. They shared on the broadcast. I don't know if you heard this, that Rich Hill, Dick Mountain,
Yes, I heard and Chase Utley
had given Geeka the advice of don't throw hard when you're out there. Just and he
and that's why you saw that ephus throw, like it was very pronounced.
Yeah, and what was so great was he I think threw a curveball at one point. There was a pitch that curved into the strike zone. They got called for a strike. So he had an 0-2 count, and Eric Karros cracked me up because he literally said, I wonder if he's going to let one go right now. And sure enough,
and he did.
the next pitch, he threw it as hard as he could, and he got it up to 80, but you could tell he had no control, and it was a ball way outside. So.
Well, and he posted on his Instagram after the game, and that'll kind of tie into one of the plays that happened during that inning. But he said, after 9 years as a Dodger, I finally made my Dodger Stadium pitching debut. Honored to have done it on Women's Night. Had to wear the helmet to remind everybody to use protection. #safety first. As far as my job on the mound, I'm pretty happy about it. Induced a lot of weak contact, painted the corners with the cutter, and had a 40-mile-per-hour spread. When it comes to covering first base, I'll be out there with the pitchers next time they have PFPs, because he was adjusting his glasses when he should have been covering first base on one of those plays, and Chris Taylor had to run in from second and like try to cover it, and obviously they got on base.
I don't blame him for that, because clearly he never runs that drill ever, because he's a position player. He's not a pitcher.
But it was funny just to call it out, like, yeah,
Yeah.
I know. He's like, my bad.
If you go back and you see the replay, he did not budge at all, Amy, because
No, he was fixing his glasses.
It never crossed his mind to go cover first base, because
Yeah.
again, he's not a pitcher. You know,
Well, and that was part of what Eric Karros and Steven Nelson were talking about too, with that Rich Hill and the Chase Utley thing about not overthrowing. Was, I think they referred to Jose Canseco, who did do that and injured himself, which is always my biggest concern when they get on the mound. And I'm just like, please don't let anything happen to them, especially just lose your footing, you're throwing differently. Like, let's pack these guys in bubble wrap, because we need everybody on here. But I thought it was hilarious. Breaking T actually just came out with a shirt with him with the helmet saying safety first on it. So
look, obviously, I know we talk about that this doesn't happen a lot, but it does seem like it happens more than we think it does.
Well, I think it's when you're playing some of those teams, though. Is it like the Rockies, like Coors Field? Obviously that's going to happen, but is it when you're playing the Rockies elsewhere? Is it when you're playing the Marlins or the White Sox, some of those teams where, they have either younger players that are coming up, or, we don't know how those teams are shaping up. Let's just say. So I got a kick out of it just because it was Kike, but he had another thing happen. So on Monday night, when he got brought in the later innings, they were talking about it on the radio feed while I was sitting there waiting for the game to start on Tuesday at the stadium. And Tim Neverett and Rick Monday were referring to a catcher's interference. The catcher stepped on Kike and no one noticed it. And Kike didn't know it was a reviewable play. So Tim or Rick was talking about it with Bob Guerin the next day, so Tuesday. And Bob Guerin said, we coached the whole team up on it. And sure enough, it happened again in the bottom of the sixth with Teoscar on Tuesday. And you saw that catcher's interference get called because the catcher had his legs stretched out so much he stepped on Teo. And so, but Teo knew in that moment it was reviewable. And so they reviewed it and they got that call overturned.
Look,
I learned so much on the radio.
yeah. And that's why I think there is a part of me that really just enjoys listening to the radio, and because it's dependent on the spoken word, we get that kind of information while you're watching it on TV. It's all there. It's right in front of you. You don't need to overkill it.
And that's why it is different. Like I could put on the radio and do all my chores around the house or whatever, but Tim Neverett is painting that picture. Like the flags are waving and the wind looks like this. So you know how windy it is in the stadium, what's going on in any given place. When you're watching the broadcast, it's great because like you said, you have visual on the game, but I can't just leave the broadcast on and do other stuff because the color commentary doesn't lend itself to the play-by-play that they do so much more on the radio, at least in my opinion. And I posted a picture up of my little transistor while I was there on Tuesday, and Tim Neverett reposted it, and I just geeked out, and I was just like, "Oh my god, he reposted my radio!"
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Amie got social media famous. They're reposting her.
Hardly.
They reposted pictures of her listening to the radio at the game.
Nerd.
Is there anything else you want to add about this Marlins of Miami series?
So again, listening to some of the broadcasts back, they had mentioned that on Tuesday, CT3 had a sim game at Dodger Stadium before the game. So that was interesting to hear that they were, they're working on some of that stuff because they don't typically have those for the batters. Like you typically hear about a sim game for the pitchers, facing batters, kind of, doing some rehab stuff. But CT3 had a sim game. And then we had that fan interference with Rojas, and it wasn't that big of a deal. He would have made it probably to second anyway, but it was interesting because, they always do that extra inning celebration. You saw him on second base and he was like, do I celebrate? Did it go out? Does it count? Is the fan interference? Like, where are we going with it? And then I don't think he ended up celebrating. They ended up calling it in his favor, but it was just, it was interesting.
So wait, that Chris Taylor specifically, that sim game was for Chris Taylor?
That's what Tim Neverett said. That's what my note said from.
That is interesting because usually you have a sim game for pitchers and then you will have some hitters that will volunteer to participate in the sim game. And usually that's when you're. No, I know, but I think I do find it odd that it was not for the pitcher, that it was specifically for Chris Taylor
and that's why Tim Neverett called it out. Like if you go back, if you have the MLB TV app, you can listen to the radio broadcast. So like I went back and I was listening to it on Saturday because I missed part of the game from work, but he was talking about it was specifically for Chris Taylor.
I would think that maybe what would help Chris Taylor more is getting more playing time, especially with the Tommy Edman injury and Conforto struggling as much as he is struggling. I know Roberts has been asked if Conforto is going to start maybe, getting some days off, but I'm glad that he did call it out because I do find it odd because
it is so unique, right?
Well, yeah, because look, you could do a sim game for a pitcher and have Chris Taylor participate in it, which will help Chris Taylor see live pitching. And I think that's the only reason why they're doing this is because he's not getting enough playing time, so he can still see major league pitches, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that they very openly are admitting that they're doing this for Chris Taylor, I'd be like, well, why don't you guys just get him in the game more? I would think that would be more beneficial to him than a sim game.
Well, that kind of goes to what Dave was asked about, I think, on Friday with Conforto, and he's going to give Conforto a long leash. He trusts him to work his way out of the deep slump, so they're going to give him more at bats to see if he figures it out. So it sounds like Conforto is going to be the bigger piece here on the team, at least for a while, before you start seeing Chris Taylor get subbed in, like you said.
And I think part of the reason why Conforto has a long leash is because he is a left-handed hitter. And the Dodgers love the righty lefty matchups. And I think that's kind of what hurts Chris Taylor, to tell you the truth, is because he's right-handed and they already have so many other right-handed options off the bench. I feel like that's why he struggles to find playing time. And
Chris
that's
Taylor,
why
how do you feel like about being a switch hitter? Like,
and that's why they ended up doing this sim game for him. And I know they have done it, especially in these blowout games. They've gotten him into the game. I just feel, especially with Tommy Edman, but now it's going to be really interesting because now that they've called up Kim, does this mean that like Chris Taylor still isn't going to get playing time?
I mean, all signs point to, unless they're going to platoon more, and it doesn't sound like that's in Robert's strategy, because he wants Conforto to work his way out of this because they know he's a good hitter. I mean, I guess it remains to be seen, because you've got so many positions or so many players that can platoon that second base position, or even any of the outfield. Really, you've got, like you said, Chris Taylor, he's an option. You've got Kike, who can play all over. Baez is going to just be, wherever you move him in the outfield. But you've got a lot of options before you even brought in Hae-Sung Kim, and you have Miguel Rojas.
Yeah.
They've got some log jams that are definitely preventing Chris Taylor from getting more playing time.
Let's talk about the Bravo series. I had totally forgot that they had already played the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium and that the Dodgers swept them. So when the Bravos won that game on Sunday, and it was like, well, the Bravos finally beat the Dodgers this year, I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. And this was a
We've had
Bravos
some back-to-back matchups, like Cubs, now the Marlins, the Braves. It's like we're getting all of those people together out of the way.
Yeah, and we still haven't played teams in our division. I know
Nope.
we're going to see the Serpientes. We're going to see the Show Pods fairly soon, and we're going to see the Gigantes. It is crazy how this schedule, we end up playing the Bravos 6 times, the Marlins 6 times before we play
and then
teams
goodbye.
within our own division.
But you got to keep it, like, I wonder if they have a team, or it's just one person who has to juggle all 30 teams' schedules and trying to make sure that they all play each other once and every other year. Like, I love a good spreadsheet, but that even makes me a little anxious.
I really hope it's more than one person. And I know Angel Fan has been complaining about what their schedule has looked like with the amount of traveling that they've had to do. But
they didn't even have their home opener till way later because they'd been on the road for so long.
Yeah. So
look, should we call out the obvious with David Wants a Taco's favorite player and the big change?
Sure, if you want, go ahead.
So I don't know if you noticed on Friday, he was wearing glasses.
I did notice that.
Yeah, evidently he was wearing prescription sunglasses on Wednesday, which kind of dates back to when he hit the home run and started seeing the ball a little bit better. But I guess he went to go see Kike's doctor, Dr. Alex Liu, about 2 weeks ago. He has 20/12 vision, which is excellent vision, but he has a right astigmatism. So shout out to all my astigmatism people out there. He said he's been testing it out in BP and in drills, but it gives him that fishbowl feeling. You don't wear glasses, do you, Juan?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you ever get that, like, when you get a new pair of glasses and it's like you're walking in like a carnival fun house?
Yes, but I get used to it very, very, very quickly.
But you're not also having to go out on the field and like see pitches and hit right away.
Have you ever seen the movie Hot Shots?
Yes.
So the John Cryer character, I believe his character's name is Radar, and he wears the really thick glasses. The Coke bottle glasses. So yeah, see, I have, but I'm very used to these glasses, so they don't. But there was a new pair of glasses that I got, and I put them on, and as I was walking, I did get that feeling. So it took me a while, and then I got used to it. But I don't know. My wife puts on my glasses and she goes, "Oh!" Like she
Yeah.
thinks I'm completely blind. So
When the apocalypse hits, just take me out, because if I can't get my contact lenses in and my glasses break, like, I'm screwed.
yeah, I just can't do the contacts. I'd much rather
Oh.
would do the glasses.
See,
I
and I got made fun of as a kid, so I hate glasses. I have them. I'll wear them at home. I hate wearing them.
Oh, I've always wanted to have glasses. So I grew up with
What?
20/20 vision. So I never so what I would do is I would get like sunglasses and pop out the lenses and wear them like that so I could look like squints.
And I'm over here like, "Please, can I just have better vision?"
I've always wanted to wear glasses, and then when my vision started going and I actually needed glasses, I was like, "Is this karma? Is this karma actually coming
You
back to
willed
me?"
it into
Yeah.
hey, I at this point, if that's what helps Max Muncy and he's seeing the ball better, like, he even said it. He said, "If there's anything that can help out a little bit, I'll try it." And clearly, we're already seeing some results just like we saw with Kike last season. So, I was talking to somebody, it's like, why aren't they just pulling up the RV like they used to have the hearing tests and just I think it might have been Philip and Jessica. We were chatting about this, like, just have everybody get their eyes checked. Again, Mo Betta.
Did you just want the nurse from the elementary school to go out there and check Max Muncy's eyes?
I mean, if that's what it takes, if glasses help this much, is they're saying being able to see the spin and the speed better. We're already seeing the results of that, so let's just check everybody's eyes just to be safe.
I think that should be obvious. I don't think you should have to say that, right?
Well, I
I
thought
would
it was
assume
too.
I would assume that these major league hitters are getting their eyes checked, especially last year when Kike, when you saw the difference with his glasses and Kike telling everybody, "Go get your eyes checked." And uh, I was going to say this because I wanted to see how Muncy's season continued, but I don't want to say that this move reeks of desperation because he was struggling. But
Well,
I
but,
do
I mean,
think in
Kike
the
almost got DFA'd last year, so if you I don't wanna say desperation, but
but it does in the back of my mind. I do think about this every once in a while. In the off season, Muncy was contemplating retirement, and
he was?
yeah, and I'm really surprised that this has not become a bigger story. He was really contemplating retirement. Now, I'm sure he was off of the high of winning the World Series and let's go ahead
Go out
and
with a
keep doing.
bang.
Yeah. But I was a little shocked to hear that he was even contemplating retirement because I believe he's in his mid 30s. Believe he's like 36 years old or something like that. Now, this is going into his last year of his contract. And from my experience, whenever I hear an athlete talk about actually Muncy's 34 years old. So I'm
Mhm.
just like
34 and 253 days.
wow, why would he think of having of retiring? And I've heard other athletes say that once the idea of retirement creaks into your mind, it kind of serves as self-doubt. So I'm really was wondering, is the start of his season, is it because he is doubting himself? He's been having some slow starts the last couple of seasons to it. So for him to get the glasses as early, I just wonder mentally something has to be going on with him in the beginning of this season. No, you
I
don't
think
think
I
so?
no, I mean, I mean, that definitely could be. I think it may be reading too far into the tea leaves. I just if something's not working, why wouldn't you try all options? I guess I would go with their they don't have excuses example of like he's not going to use anything as an excuse. If he committed to this season, he's committed. And if he's got head trash, he'll work through it. If he thinks that there's another factor, like in this case, if Kike pushed him or whoever to go to the eye doctor, cool. If they had said your eyesight is perfect, no astigmatism, then he would have gone on and worked on the next thing, in my opinion. Like, you just keep going down the list and checking off the boxes, and like Dave Roberts said, until things will eventually start to click. We just got out of April. Like, they only had what a month and a few days of the actual season. Like, they're getting going. Like you said, we still have months of baseball left.
So, because you were looking at me at a perplexed look, and that I was reading too much into this, this was in a spring training interview that he gave Jack Harris of the Los Angeles Times, and so these were Max Muncy's words. When you're in a month of 3 of not playing and nothing's getting better, and you start having thoughts in your head, like, is my body telling me that you just can't do this anymore? That's a tough one for me. Now, obviously, in the off season, there was a lot of talk of Nolan Arenado, right? And that Muncy was going to be. So that might have also messed with his head, But I do find it, like I said, we can never underestimate the mental aspect of what it is to play sports, especially Major League Baseball, because it's such a grind. It's every day. And we mentioned that at the beginning of the show when Muncy says it's a privilege to wear this Dodger uniform, and he acknowledges that he is open to criticism. When you got all that stuff, that to me all sounds like doubt in your head. How can you play this sport and be effective when you hear the voices in your head? Maybe I start believing what people say about me and stuff like that. So for me, I hope this glass thing helps him turn around the mental aspect, because if you start hitting, what that will do is that relates to confidence. And we all know how different a player you look when you have confidence.
You had me with everything about how hard it is, that it's a mental game. I don't do the speculation into why he's doing this, cuz we'll never know. I feel like they're going to put their all into it no matter what, head trash, whatever. I would say, as a challenge to people, let's be better fans. Why are we, while they're going through this, they already have the emotional and the mental stuff going on in their head where they're tearing themselves down. Let's be more uplifting as a fan base, and not just of the Dodgers. I mean, fans in general. Let's just be better fans. Support these guys instead of ripping them apart all the time. Even with what Conforto's going through, I see so many things of, there's all the stats that everybody's posting. He's 0 for this, he's that, whatever for that. You don't think that guy hears that, sees it, but also isn't thinking that about himself? He's already got enough going on. At least he has the support of his team, the support of his manager, that he'll hopefully figure it out. On it, he's going from the San Francisco Giants, which is it's a good team. They were in first, just a week or so ago. They're contending this year. They had a couple rough years, but it's not like he was playing for slouch teams, but coming to the World Series defending team, that's got to carry its own baggage with it too. So I would just say the challenge is, hey, how about we be a better fan base in baseball as a whole?
Okay, I'm going to be better, and I'm going to sit here and gloat about how good Yamamoto was on Friday against the Bravos.
Do it.
Again, I don't know what else I can say about this guy's start to the season.
Are you going to start a fan club for him?
No, but I want to point out, when your ERA is under 1 and it takes Paul Skeens to outpitch you to basically get a blemish on. I know he has, I think his record is 4-2. Look, wins and losses is that stat has lost its polish a long, long time ago. So when I look at a picture now, I know a lot of people look at WHIP, a lot of people look at other statistics. I really look at ERA, and I look at innings pitched. And we're starting to see Yamamoto consistently pitch 6 innings, and
he's around 100 pitches every time. He's mid to upper 90s, or he's flirted with 100 plus pitches a few times now.
I know they went short with him this time because he's going to go on quote unquote short rest this time, because
for him, yes,
because it's a 10-game streak stretch that they're playing right now. So right now he is scheduled to pitch on Thursday against the Serpientes. But gosh, he was so good. But man, Amie, what is it with these comebackers to him? Like he got one in spring training. Was it this year or last year that he got one in spring training off the noggin? And it's just I mean, these
It's
balls
too
are
close
getting
for
hit hard.
comfort.
Yeah, it is way too close for comfort. How did you like the rain this weekend in Atlanta?
Oh my gosh. So I went to go watch the game on Saturday at the brewery, got there right before like 4:15, got my scorecard ready, and then
So
sat
you
there
did
for
not check social media when it was clearly saying this game is
Oh
not going to
no.
start
Oh
on
no,
time.
I saw it and I was hopeful like, "Oh, it won't be that long, so I'll be here, I'll get
Oh,
some
okay.
food, I'll get caught up on my notes for the show." So I was thinking I'd get a little work done. I didn't think I'd get 3 hours of work done, 3 hours and 6 minutes to be exact. And then it was the question of, "Oh god, is Sasaki going to pitch? Is this going to throw off their schedule?" Because it's been a 3-hour delay.
A 3-hour tour, a
A
3-hour
3-hour
tour. I will say
tour.
I was very
Just sit
surprised.
right back and you'll hear a tale.
I was very, very surprised that he actually started that game.
Mhm.
I really, as conservative as the Dodgers are with their pitching, and I just can't imagine with everything that pitchers have to do to get ready to pitch a game, and then all of a sudden you're just sitting there for a good 2 hours just, like, waiting.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's not even like you knew. We knew about 45 minutes before they were gonna restart the game, which was what, 10:15 on the East Coast? Good grief. They played after, like, well after midnight because it was a 3-hour game.
Look, it wasn't his sharpest start, but he did the job,
Mhm.
especially with the fact that the Dodgers are gonna have a bullpen game, a couple of bullpen games coming up in Miami. I think, yeah, while he did get hit hard on some occasions, he did enough to win the game. He kept the team in the game, and the offense came through and carried them when they needed to
And
on a game.
it was small ball and Freddie Freeman with the 3-run home run. So, I was happy with that.
Absolutely. We also in that series, Hae-Sung Kim got called up. Amie, what are your expectations of Hae-Sung Kim?
I don't have any.
Because
I hope
people were losing their mind when he went from second to third on that play yesterday. Like
I
everybody
felt
was
like I was watching the Jackie Robinson movie where he was like, "Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da-da."
like, I got all these messages. Oh man, you see how fast he is? And I'm like, and I can already see it now. I can already see it now. At the time we are recording this, it is the first game of the game against the Marlins of Miami, and he's officially starting this game. I'm not going to go into what he's done so far,
Thank you, because I'm recording it.
but I already see it. If he doesn't get any hits, it's going to be this guy sucks,
This
right?
is why you just don't have any expectations and you enjoy the guy playing.
And if he does get hits, it's going to be like this guy needs to be playing every day. And it's just like,
So what I'm hearing is nobody's gonna be happy?
yeah, pretty
Okay,
much.
okay.
I
All
just
right.
feel in terms of expectations, we should really look at the Korean player that the Gigantes
Is
have,
that
and
Ji-hoon?
I think that he would be a good comp because I feel like it's taken him a bit to make an adjustment. And
Mhm.
look, if Kim goes out there and shows it differently, that's great for the Dodgers, right?
Mhm.
But I think we really have to like look at it as, and maybe having that time in the minor leagues will also help him.
Just
Um,
the adjustment of coming over here. Like, the game on the whole is the same, but it's still an adjustment for Major League versus the Korean League. So, I'm happy for him that he got called up. And much like baseball, it's always tinged with that bittersweet, right? Because he got called up because Tommy Edmonds hurt, which sucks. But that is how you find players sometimes get their break. Like, isn't that how we got Fernando Valenzuela? Like, oops, here, let's have this guy pitch, and then off goes a career. And
that's
he's not the only one.
That's very true. This is a perfect opportunity for him. Let's see what he does with it. I do think it's interesting, being that he is a left-handed bat. Once
Mhm.
Tommy Edman comes back, if Conforto is still struggling, are we going to see Conforto with maybe a phantom IL stretch?
You with your Phantom IL.
Well, look, there's just a lot of times where it's people walk up, "Hey, your elbow hurts." What? My elbow hurt? Oh yeah, my elbow hurts. So I
It
know you love this, Amie, but we had two national televised games this weekend,
Oh,
one on Fox and
nice.
ESPN. So, Amie, because I'm always considered the complainer on this show,
Oh, I'll
I'm going
take
to
over.
allow you to compliment the games on Fox and on ESPN this weekend.
Are you tagging me in?
I'm tagging you in.
All right.
The show is yours now. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
So I don't have much to say. It's not my jam. Like the Fox game, what did you think about they would do the umpire camera? I thought they were doing it for replays initially, and then I realized they would do like the pitch from, one camera angle, then another, and then the third pitch was the actual umpire camera angle. So you're seeing this like jostling, like whatever, and it was like the ball coming straight for you. I thought it was a replay. It was not. They were showing live pitching footage from the ump's perspective.
That doesn't bother me. I can see what you're saying if we're getting too much of it. I do like, in a sense, seeing it from that angle because we get to see what the umpires are seeing. And some of these pitches have ridiculous movement. So
Mhm.
while we're sitting here saying, and we're going to talk about this a little later on right now in one of our topics. So when these umpires are missing pitches that you are like, oh, it caught the corner, that should have been a strike. It's like, guys, there is some ridiculous movement where you fooled the hitter. I'm pretty sure you can also fool the umpire on it. So that kind of stuff doesn't bother me.
Oh,
If
it
it
was
gets
a
a
little
little excessive where I'm getting dizzy watching it, then it'd be like, stop.
it was a little too Blair Witch for me. I don't mind if you replay it that way. I don't wanna see the original pitch that way. It just to me, it breaks up the game. To your point, though, there have been times where I'm at the stadium and you hear the whole stadium get on that umpire because they think from their seats, like, "Oh, that was totally a strike," or whatever you called it was wrong, and then I'll pull up my game day app, and I'm like, "Oh, no, that was a strike." And it's like, "All right, well, that's my humble moment of, like, maybe don't say anything to the umpire until you know for sure, like, where that ball actually was." Um,
Yeah. Look, I tip my hat to them. Look, I know exactly what you're
oh,
talking about.
did you just say look?
I had drink. Last week, I felt the home plate umpire was totally squeezing the pitcher at my daughter's game, and all the parents in the stands behind him thought the same thing. But we don't know what the umpire is seeing, so that's why I do appreciate when they show us that view. So I can
Mhm.
see this ridiculous movement where this pitch was going like this, and it's like, okay, you tell me where you think that landed. Or
Right,
more importantly, where do you think that crossed the plate? So
right.
it's
I don't like I said, do it in a replay, that's fine. I don't wanna see the actual pitch coming through that way. Um, I mean, other than that, it's Fox. I was at the brewery, though, so I couldn't hear it. I just put my radio feed on, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's great."
I didn't see it. Now, mind you, I didn't look for it. I wonder if there was John Smoltz hate, just because I think every Dodger fan is convinced that John Smoltz hates the Dodgers. So
I think he was on there. I didn't look I myself did not look at Twitter either for
he
that.
was on the call. He was on the call.
Yeah, no, he was, but, like, sometimes I'll go look to see what people are saying, and I was like, it's been 3 hours of it right now, I just don't care, and I can't hear it, so I'm fine. The ESPN game, though, I went back to rewatch it because I accidentally fell asleep on the couch when the game was on, and so I rewatched it later, and because I synced up the radio feed from MLB TV perfectly, I didn't really have to hear the ESPN calls because I listened for the first 2 or 3 innings and I was so irritated. They did mic up Alex Verdugo,
Yes.
and so I was grimacing the whole time that was happening.
What is it that you don't like about their announcers?
Their announcers? Like it was the same thing similar to like with it's the different broadcast. So like on Fox, they kept throwing up graphics. And I find myself like I'm at the stadium, like trying to see around him. Like, that's great. You just called out that he hit his 88th pitch. It's right there in the corner. It says 88. Like they've got a pitch counter. Like, what do you need all these graphics for? That's me not being, I don't know, because I don't want to throw that on casuals. That's just not how I like to watch the game. I like the way that Sportsnet usually runs theirs. With ESPN, I just don't like the way they call the game. They jump around too much. They're not really calling the game. They're talking about other stuff. Like, I'm there to watch the game. You don't need to entertain me. The baseball game is the entertainment.
I totally see where you're coming from, and that is again. I know we've talked about this on the show. That to me is because of the fact that Major League Baseball has become so local, and it is just about your regional baseball team. This is my team, and this is all I follow. So when you go to watch a nationally televised game, Those guys need to speak like you are watching the Dodgers for the very first time and you don't know anything about the Dodgers. And the problem is that you have a fan base that is very informed about their team and probably knows more about their team than the announcers do. And so
Mhm.
when you have the broadcasters talking to you like they know everything about this team and clearly they don't, I know why that is off putting, but I feel like that is a product of how baseball has become so regional. Because when I was a kid and I would watch national televised games with Vin Scully and Joe Garagiola, the games of the week when Al Michaels was doing them, I had no problem with anything that these guys were saying. Now, Tim McCarver, he was in my Fight Club, so he still is in my Fight Club. So whenever Tim McCarver would say anything, it automatically upset me. But
These guys
since
are
then,
it's not just that though. It's the dumbing down of it. It's the fact that like you're missing pieces of the game because they're doing this like, here, let's show the guys talking about the game in there. Like, I don't care. Show me the batter. I want to see how this guy is attacking the pitcher. I don't care about what you guys are flipping around. It's just how they approach it. I don't like it, and I don't like the mic'd up stuff. Like, to me, we've talked this to death. I just don't like it. It's a distraction in the game. I just want to see the players play. If you want to mic them up and we just hear what they're saying out in the field, fine. But don't mic them up and have a full-on conversation while they're trying to catch balls that are, I think Alex Verdugo was between one that was at the wall. He couldn't have made it, but he did have to go run over while they're like just don't do that.
I do find it interesting your dumbing down comment. Only I'm very curious because I'll tell you this: I don't watch Sunday Night Baseball unless it's the Dodgers, right? So I'm guilty of that regional
Mhm.
bias. But I am curious if they dumb it down for all the other broadcasts or if they specifically dumb it down for the Dodgers because of what you were talking about earlier, that tourist element that comes with the Dodgers, because you have
Oh.
maybe newer fans that are really following the Dodgers because of Otani,
Oh, I
that
just
there are
assume they do this.
casuals.
I assume they do this for every broadcast. I'm not
And
it
and I
never
don't
crossed
know.
my mind that they're trying to specifically target Dodger fans. My assumption is they're doing this across the board, and I just don't like their broadcast style. Like, and that there could be people who love the ESPN broadcast format. Great. That's where you don't like certain, commentators. I'm not a fan of when, ESPN or Fox runs a game. I'd rather watch a Fox game than an ESPN game because I know they're gonna get mic'd up on ESPN. But at the end of the day, we have no control over any of that. So that's where like you control what you can. It's like, all right, cool. I'm gonna listen to the radio while this game plays because it's just not fun for me. And then at that point, it's like, all right, stop shifting the picture and just show me the game.
Yeah, and to go back to your point in the sense, I don't know that they're necessarily targeting Dodger fans, but I'm curious if they dumb it down extra during Dodger games because there's that international audience that
Do you
gets.
think they care that much?
I don't know because this also just could be what they're being told, research. I mean, they are a company that does research. Hey, this plays well. This, do more of this, do more of that, which again, I think is what is frustrating to the diehard fan who watches this team on a consistent basis, who knows everything. And you're being told things that you're like, you either already know, or you're being told things that you're just like, that's not right. No,
And for me, that's where I'll just turn the volume off because the reason I'm watching the game is because I cannot physically be there. I cannot fly to every location they're at. So you are in effect showing me the game that I cannot be at. So do that. The
Yeah.
commentating part aside, like that's why I'll turn it off, and that's fine. There were a lot of comments about Sunday's game because the Dodgers did lose, and we effectively lost on two-run home runs from Austin Riley. So Austin Riley kind of beat the Dodgers. I mean, I'm joking. Obviously, it's offense, it's pitching, it's everything that goes into it. But just as like tongue in cheek, people were saying like, "Oh man, Austin Riley, he was the one playing the Dodgers on Sunday."
Yeah, Riley 4, Dodgers 3.
Yeah.
But and it was almost identical It was Alex Verdugo, who really seems to rub Dodger fans the wrong way, would get on base ahead of Riley. And this is where I was saying
I think
that,
he earned it though with all the stuff he said about the World Series when he wasn't on the team. So
but I feel like Dustin May's pitches, the last couple of outings, really don't seem very sharp. And it seems like all he's throwing is sweepers. And the thing is the ones to Austin Riley, they didn't sweep very much, and they were right over the plate.
mhm.
And so that is something that I want to keep an eye on with Dustin May, because at the beginning of the year there seemed to have been a lot more movement on his pitches. And I don't know if, sometimes, like you said, you go through funks, you go through fate, you just don't have it. So I'm very curious to see how he looks in his next start. Is there anything else you want to cover about the Bravos and the Dodgers series?
No, I think that's it. I mean, the only other thing I saw was just talking about how even because the game went so late Saturday into Sunday, that the last bus for the Dodgers didn't even leave till 2:20 a.m. And again, nobody's going to use that as an excuse, but it will factor into the sluggish play we did see at the start of that game. And, that stuff's got to be rough.
That's what I'm saying. Major League Baseball is tough, man. I mean, yes, maybe some other sports are physically more demanding because you're like physically pushing each other or stuff like that. But you got to play every day.
Physically
And
and mentally draining.
that's pretty difficult. Amie, I want to go to our next topic, which is Bill Shaken wrote an article that I don't know. Sometimes I guess you got to look for content to write something. But he had written an article about load management, and in particular, was saying that the Dodgers are an old team. And I'm just like, he has a point. He
Mhm.
does have a point in the sense that Mookie Betts and Federico Freeman are getting older. Those are veterans. But
As happens.
this whole idea that the Dodgers should load management, I'm like, Bill, you work for the Los Angeles Times. I've seen you at the stadium, Bill. You've been covering this team for years. This whole concept of load management, the Dodgers have been doing load management for years now.
So why are you upset then?
I'm not upset. I'm just like, I don't like, he presented this idea of like, should the Dodgers consider doing this? I'm just like, they already are. Like, sometimes maybe focus on something else, Amie, is what I'm saying. There's a lot of
But I
stories.
could say the same to you. Like that one didn't resonate to you. Don't read it.
Well, I mean, we did read it, and what did we both say at the end? That's it. Like it was
Yeah,
such a
it
short
ended
article.
very abruptly. I thought there was a point to, much like when we learn in English, it's like a beginning, a middle, and an end. I was like, we're still in the middle. Where's the end? I thought you didn't send me the right article.
So my question to you is, aren't most Major League Baseball teams practicing load management?
I mean, and if they're not, devil's advocate, how are you going to get Freddie off the field?
Well,
That man will not come off the field, but I mean, Freddie was quoted in the article and he's like, I may play every day, but like if we're, ahead in a game, I get pulled out in a certain inning. So, like I I didn't know why you wanted to talk about this story, honestly, when you sent it, because I was like, I don't get the point.
I wanted to talk about it because I wanted to see if I was missing something.
No.
Because I feel that not only the Dodgers, but I feel like all of Major League Baseball is practicing load management, because these are not the days of Cal Ripken anymore, where I believe now almost every Major League Baseball team has players with scheduled day offs. Like there's many times I've heard opposing managers say, well, this was a scheduled day off for him in terms of why this person didn't play.
I'm not gonna like I don't want to speculate on what Bill's angle was, but I mean, maybe people want more of those days off for them. But you're going to get the argument that kind of what we talked about before. People come to see these players play, so that's also why they don't forfeit games. So if I brought my kid or I brought myself to go see Freddie Freeman play or Mookie Betts or, Shohei, I want to see him in the game. And I
Now,
mean,
that to me is an interesting angle. I don't know if that was his intention with that angle. I didn't get that. I don't
oh no,
think
that was just what I thought of when I was
well,
reading.
that to me is very interesting what you bring up, but I don't think Major League Baseball is to that point like where it is with the NBA, where you have people come out, they want to see a certain player, and they're not playing just for the sake of not playing.
Well,
I
and
think for the most part,
that got brought up last year when there was a big issue in the NBA because people were coming to see and like LeBron was on a day off or whatever. They
right.
were resting people strategically, and it might not have been beneficial for the people who paid to come see those people. So it's already in the minds of people across other sports. I'm sure that would come. I mean, that's why we don't shorten the season. That's why we don't have forfeits, because everybody, players, team owners, front office, everybody wants to make money on this game. That's, we're not going to see any big changes when it affects somebody's pocketbook.
I don't think Major League Baseball has a load management problem. But I think these guys play enough games, and for the most part, you're seeing the star players play the majority of the games. If they are not playing, it's because they're injured.
Well, and again, I know I can't I keep talking about this Red Sox documentary, but Tristan Casas, I think in like the first episode, talks about why we have to have 162 games, and his perspective was pretty interesting. So if you need some more baseball content that doesn't involve games, like there's a lot of really good just opinions, angles, and things like that from the players. Thought provoking.
Okay, last story. The Athletic wrote a story about umpires doing umpire things, right? Right, Amie?
Yeah. So there's a change in how umpires are being graded or evaluated, and this has had an impact on the balls and strikes. The zone has been tightened up. The intent was to call the rule book strike zone more accurately. The problem with this is that the MLB is saying that players drove this change when they renegotiated the agreement with the Major League Umpires Association, and players are saying we didn't drive this. But the big thing that I took away from it, while the buffer zone has shrunk, is everybody's upset that they feel that this wasn't communicated to them. And the MLB is saying they absolutely communicated it during the winter meetings. They polled managers across the board, some anonymously, some, just came out and said it. And they're like, I feel like I would have remembered this and I would have talked about this with our fellow managers, owners, whatever. And the players don't remember this being brought up. So while yes, there's a decreased margin for error and fewer strikes are being called off the edges of the plate, everybody's more concerned about like, why weren't we told more clearly about this? Because this is going to impact game planning, pitch sequencing, pitch framing, and roster construction just because of the way it's being called, with just those changes in the frame around the strike zone.
Look, I think it's valid if they are saying no one told us about this, but I also look at it is you have to adapt every game to a certain umpire strike zone. So in the first inning, you pretty much know what pitches are getting called strikes and which aren't.
You said Empire Strike Zone, and I just immediately went to Empire Strikes Back. Sorry, I had a Star Wars floating moment. All right.
English is my second language. Yes.
No, you didn't say anything wrong. That was my ADHD. Just like, sorry. I was just like, Star Wars? What?
And I love the Empire Strikes Back.
Return of the Jedi is my favorite.
I do think that, pitchers and teams, they all have to adapt anyways to the whims. I think the bigger issue, like I said, I do think it's valid if they feel like they weren't told.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is all strictly a result of robot umpires and the technology. Because we can see every pitch, what is a strike and what isn't a strike. And if these guys are being evaluated, and in the end, what's that that account on Twitter that gives you the percentage of what the umpire, the number of correct strike called and the ones that they missed?
Umpire scorecard.
There we go. So, look, if you're an umpire, I think you would probably be like, I'm a little worried about my job. You guys are talking about bringing in technology to replace me. It has now become a part of a normal broadcast we can all see, like, there were pitches that were outside of the strike zone that he called a strike, and it's like, what's going on here? That, to me, I'm just like, as I feel like that's really the issue, is that these umpires are so aware of the fact that everybody who's not only watching the game knows whether they made the right strike call or not. It's
I
not
don't
like it was
even
back in the day where you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy's, yeah, we can say it, but we
we
don't know
don't
what he
know.
saw. Yeah, for sure. But here we can clearly, because you're telling us this is what the strike zone is. And so far, every pitch is outside of the strike zone. So I just feel like there's a part of me that does feel a little of empathy for these umpires, because I feel like the broadcasts are not doing them any favors or helping them.
But they just agreed to this in their CBA though. Like, this was their agreement. They agreed that this would be the change in how they were evaluated and graded. So if they agreed to this in their CBA, now they're following it. So from the umpire side, they're just doing what they negotiated. And that involves, if they're going to shrink that buffer zone, something that might have been a strike before might be a ball, or vice versa. So depending, they're just being a lot more conservative with how they're calling it close to the plate. So,
and you don't think that maybe because of they're worried, if someone goes back and sees these pitches, they're going to be able to see whether that was a strike or not?
well, I think it's more based on just them being, if they're going to be graded on this, and that is directly impacts, whether you get to call a postseason game and whatnot, that affects your pocketbook. So I'm going to get the calls right. There's a lot of eyeballs on that. So ABS or not, because as we've seen with the ABS, it's a challenge system. You still need the umpire there. So I don't think it's really, I mean, who knows? I'm not an umpire, so I don't know if I would be fearing for my job, because I think we need that human element. We just need a checks and balance system for that. And I think that's what the ABS provides. So from what I understood from the article here, it wasn't necessarily being threatened about ABS. In my interpretation, it's more, if we're going to be graded and evaluated on this, well, then I'm going to tighten up my zone, because that's what you're saying I'm getting graded on. So that's what I'm going to do. The problem is if it's not communicated clearly to the players, where I think one of the examples in the article was one of the umpires like, how do you like the new strike zone to a catcher? And the catcher's like, what new strike zone? Well, if that wasn't communicated across the board and calls are going a different way, that does impact the game, because you don't have everybody on a level playing field. You get the information out there, and then, people get to adapt.
I see your point. I know that the technology wasn't included in the article. I do feel technology is a part of this conversation, but there is another part of me. Then the question is, why has the strike zone changed? Like, isn't the strike zone? There are many people who will tell me, "Where's the strike zone?" And they'll go from the armpits to the top of the knee. That's what the strike zone is. Now, if you're telling me the strike zone has changed, yes, I think you need to know. All right, so is it
Well,
not?
the strike zone has not changed. The buffer zone changed. So now they're just calling the game more tightly. So
Right,
that
but
buffer that they're
why is there
giving,
even a buffer zone? Like, shouldn't a strike be a strike?
well, probably human error. I mean, because they're not robots, you're going to have some kind of a buffer. And if every play or every pitch I was calling last year in this zone now no longer counts, because it's a little bit closer to that square in the middle or the rectangle in the middle, then, I got to tighten up my game.
Yeah,
I mean, technically, it is to match the rule book strike zone. So it sounds like we've deviated from that rule book strike zone for a while, and they're now just bringing it back in.
yeah, that's always a hard thing, right? Is once you've let things slide, trying to go back to the way things are is always going to be met with resistance. So,
Oh, show. Just random. I just saw a note. Did you notice in one of the broadcasts they were talking about Altuve wants to change his batting order? He doesn't want to hit leadoff anymore because it's taking too long to run in from the field.
because he's out playing in left field now?
Did you hear that?
I did not know that.
Tim Neverett brought it up on the broadcast, and Rick Monday said that is the weakest excuse that he's ever heard. Good old Rick Monday. Kind of come full circle back to our comments corner.
Oh, I hope there was something lost in the translation of that comment, because, yeah, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So
That doesn't sound good.
that might deserve a little more research, maybe. But
Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for this episode. For those of you that have been listening to us on the audio portion of the podcast, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you guys. We loved all the engagement from the last episode. So please keep it coming. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Bluesky at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. Nos despedimos con un beso. Amie, say goodbye to the people.
goodbye, people.